Hello everybody, I'm Nick, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can deploy your Blazor WebAssembly website into an S3 bucket and then host it off of that. And I'm going to show you how you can run it with your own domain name and also with HTTPS or SSL support. So we're going to see all of that in this video, providing you with a very cheap and efficient way to store what it is effectively a static website running WebAssembly behind the scenes. There is also a video that is coming or might be already published with the exact same idea, but for Azure. So if I have made that video and you're more into Azure, you can click on the top right corner of your screen right now to go and watch that video instead. On this one, we're only gonna focus on AWS and S3 hosting. So let's dive straight into the code. What I have here is a very basic bare bones Blazor WebAssembly website with your usual counter, index and fetch data arrays or components. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just run it so you can see what we're about to deploy and run. And here we go. Let me just make this a bit bigger. And as you can see, we have the usual suspects here. Now, the way this is running through this console, this host through .NET is quite different through how it will run in S3. And the first thing we need to do for this to actually happen is to publish it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the root of the project, and I'm going to use PowerShell for this actually, and .NET publish. I'm not going to dive into any compression and optimization and tree shaking. I want to focus on the deploying and hosting bit, and I'm also going to show this in a very administration way, not really using the AWS CLI. I'm going to show you how you would do it if you just want to push your code and run it through AWS. We might see Terraform in the future and how we can automate this whole process, but for the purposes of this video, I'm not actually going to show you that. I'm going to show you how you can do it through the website. So we have the site built now, and it's in the publish folder. And as you can see, you have the 3W root folder and the web.config. I'll talk about this in a second, but the one you really care about is this. This is the content of your website, and this is how it will run through this. Now, what we want to do is push these files into an S3 bucket, and let's see how we can do this. Here I have the AWS management console. This is the web interface that you will have to deal with, and what I want to do is I'm going to go at the top here and type S3. I'm going to click the S3 bucket option, and this takes me in S3, and S3 is a global service, so in the drop down you don't get to select a region. S3 is globally replicated. And then I'm going to create a bucket. You can name this whatever you want. I'm going to go with Nick Blazor here, and I'm going to run this in London, and I'm going to untick this because we do actually want public access. Let me just make this a bit bigger. We do want public access. We will limit what you can do with this public access, however, and I will explain that in the next section. So we don't really care about tagging and versioning. You can actually use it if you want, but it's not necessary for this, or a default encryption, or any of that for that matter. You can just go ahead and create the bucket, and you just say, I acknowledge that it is what it is. Now, this S3 bucket can be accessed by anybody. We want to limit this a little bit. We want to set some permissions through a bucket policy in terms of what you can actually run against that bucket. Now, I'm going to have to paste this, so I don't just type it out because it doesn't make sense for me to do so. But effectively what this is doing is just allowing everybody to just do a get object on the objects on the S3 bucket, now without actually performing any other actions. And we're going to specify the resource here by copying the ARN on this button and pasting this here. And I'm going to hit save, and this should be all I need to do for the S3 bucket permissions. And now what you want to do, and like I said, I'm going to do this from the website. You don't have to use the website. You can use the CLI if you want to do a sync on that. But to make this more user-friendly, I'm going to make this through the console. I'm going to do this through the UI. So I'm going to click the upload button, and it takes me to the upload page and gives me instructions on how to do this in other ways, but what I want to focus on is just the add files button. And here I have access to my publish www root folder, and I'm going to select all the files. I cannot actually select the folders through this. So all the files are ready to be uploaded, and then I'm going to select the folders, and I'm going to have to do this one after the other. It's a bit boring. That's where the CLI would be actually more useful, but oh well. You can see this manually. I might actually show the CLI later in this video. And now we have all the documents that we want to upload. It's just the side documents. You don't need to touch anything else. All you're going to do is hit upload. And this will now upload all the data to the S3 bucket. And with that out of the way, almost done actually, we are ready to run the website. And all you need to do, this is so easy. You need to go to the properties, and you want to scroll to the very, very bottom, and you'll find this static website hosting. You're going to do edit here, and you're going to say enable. And then you want to say host a static website, and we're going to point to the index document, and that for us is called index.html. We don't really have an error document, but you can still type in error.html here. I'm going to ignore the redirect rules for now, but not for long. For now, we just want to see if this actually works. So with that out of the way, we have static website hosting enabled. And if I click on that now, it will say denied, but if we give it a second, you will see that we now have the website working up and running, exactly what we want. And now this is globally accessible. However, there's a couple of things I want to touch on. First, this I think doesn't support HTTPS out of the box, so you're stuck with HTTP. And you also have to use this weird Amazon domain. And also if you go to counter and then instead of refreshing, you just go directly to that, you'll get a 404. And that's because the site doesn't actually know where this counter component lives. Because it's no longer hosted through a .NET process, the default routing doesn't actually work the way it would normally, the way you would do it through .NET Run. And for that reason, we need to tinker a bit with the code. Now, the next bit I'm going to show you is quote unquote borrowed by a Steven Sanderson repository, where he's showing how you can implement a very nice way to redirect to a component. And I'm going to have all this code in the description down below. So we're going to go to our code here, and I want to go to the 3w root and then index.html, and under the head, I want to paste this code. And this code will handle a query string parameter pointing to the component. I won't stick too much to the code. It's actually even a bit obfuscated. But what it will do, and I can show you that, is let's just quickly redeploy our project. So let's do a clear .NET publish. I can probably not even have to do this. I can just copy the updated document, which is the index.html. So go back here, objects. I could do a sync, but I won't. And I'm going to go here, add files, and I'm going to select the index related files. And then I'm going to say OK and upload it. Now, this might take a second to update, but what we want to get to is we want to be able to say that if you go to the main page and you do a question mark and you have the query parameter p equals the name of the page you want to go, it should redirect you. See exactly the way it did now for me. And if I do the same for fetch data, so if I go to the main page, question mark p equals / fetch data, it redirects me there. Now, this is a bit of a weird approach, and it's not the only approach. If you were using something that accepts flexible redirect rules, you can do this way more easily with regex. However, S3 doesn't. And I can go back to the properties and the website hosting section, and here the redirect rules are a bit limited in terms of what you can do. For example, in this case, I will actually paste the rules about the redirection, I can use these to actually tell the system to say, okay, whenever you see /counter, convert that to a p equals counter, and then fetch data, p equals fetch data. And if I save that and give it a couple of seconds, and then I go back to the website and I go to counter and then enter counter, as you can see, it's landing on the right page. And if I open the DevTools and I show you the network call stream, you can see that it's redirecting from a /counter to $p equals counter, which allows us the code that we have in the index.html to properly reroute this to the component. And now we have the website running. That's the first part done. However, what happens when you want to actually have SSL support and also your own domain? Let's see how we can do this now. Since we are already in AWS, I'm going to use a different service in AWS called CloudFront, which is effectively a CDN. So same way we found S3, I'm going to type cloud front here and open this in a new tab. And I'm going to create a new distribution. And all I want is a web one, so I can click on that. And we need an origin domain name. If you use this, you will fail because it's not the actual domain you want to have as origin domain name. What you want to have is this bit, which is quite different because it also has the website part. And then we're not really going to attach origin path or shielding or any of that, origin ID. We don't really need to do anything. What we do want is redirect HTTP to HTTPS, just secure our website. We can enable all of these HTTP methods if we want to. If not, you can change that. We don't really care about the caching, to be honest. I'm gonna disable that, but you might want to, since it's a static website, you might want to have that. And I'm gonna touch upon the scene names in a second and alternative domain names. For now, let's just run it through the CloudFront. So the website will look like this. We're gonna have a number or text, then .cloudfront.net with HTTPS support. So I think this all looks good. I'm going to click create a distribution, and if I scroll on the right, this is saying in progress. Let's just wait until this is actually done, and it should only take a few minutes. So that now says deployed after a couple of minutes, which means that I can actually access that domain name, and it should redirect me to the website. Sure enough, it does. And if I go to another one, you can see that it all works. However, if I refresh, it does redirect me to the original website. We can quickly fix that by actually adding the CDN URL here. I can simply say hostname and then the CDN, which should be this bit. And I can do this again in the redirect. Bit of a scrappy way of going about it. Did I mess it up? I probably did. Hostname found, unexpected. Is it called something else? Ah, it's capital N. Of course it's capital N. And now with that, I saved it, which means that, I mean, it redirects. It might actually take a minute or two, but if I go to counter and refresh, as you can see now, it stays at the right domain, which is great, which means that we can now go forward to actually using our own custom domain name. To do that, we can do it in CloudFront, and it's one of the reasons why we're using it. Now, what we want to do is to use our own certificate, so we can actually move to our own domain. And I can do this from here, request or import certificate with ACM. ACM, I think the full name is Amazon Certificate Manager, is what we are going to use to upload our own certificate. If you want to use one from Amazon, you can do that through the ACM as well. But I do have a certificate already created for free through Let's Encrypt, and I'm going to use that. And the domain I'm going to use is aws.chapsas.com. I'm going to use it as a subdomain on my current blog. and I'm going to say next. And I'm going to do a DNS validation, and I'll explain what that is. You don't need to set any tags. And I'm going to say continue. And now it will give me a few things that it wants me to do to actually validate that I am the owner of this domain. And it tells me to go to my domain provider and set a CNAME record to the DNS configuration with this name, this type, and this value. My domain is hosted in GoDaddy, and I'm going to show you how you can do this in GoDaddy, but any provider that you have will have this very same thing. So here are my domains in GoDaddy, and I'm going to find the one I want to edit, and I'm going to say managed DNS, and then I'm going to click the add button, select type, CNAME, and then I need a host and a points to. I'm going to set a custom 600 seconds on this. You don't really need that for the validation, but I want to be quick. There's no other record with that host, so it will be very quick anyway. So copying that here, and we're copying that and pasting it here. And that's it. You just say yes, and here's the record. Now we're gonna have to wait a minute or so and then retry to validate this, and once the CNAME is resolvable, it will actually allow us to move forward. So it says validation not complete. We have to wait for a second. So as you can see now, the status is issued, meaning that I can indeed use this because I proved that I own the domain. So if I go back, actually I can do this here. I can click the import a certificate, and this is where I can import the certificate that I generated. So now I will have to import the certificate, and based on the way you created them, you might have a different set of keys and files, but the way I made it, I have these here. And for me, the domain.crt is the certificate body, the domain.key is the private key, and then the intermediate.pem is the certificate chain. So I'm going to paste the contents of those files there. Certificate goes here, domain goes here, and intermediate.pem or chain goes here. I don't need to do anything with that. Tells me to back them up. I don't really care. And now I have my certificate imported, and it's all good to go and ready to be used. Now, what I need to do for this to actually work is a couple of things. First, in CloudFront, I can refresh this now, and it will actually give me the option to use my custom certificate. It automatically finds it here. And I will also have to provide my alternative domain name. And I'm going to say aws.chapsas.com. And with that out of the way, I'm going to click yes, edit. Now this is in place, but I actually need to update my GoDaddy or domain manager to add this CNAME for AWS. So back to the GoDaddy website, I'm going to add a new entry. It's going to be a CNAME. Host is the subdomain, so AWS, and it should point to the CloudFront URL. So I'm going to paste that here, and I'll set it to an hour because it doesn't really matter for this specific thing. And that's it. We have a CNAME now, and with that out of the way, I will have to do a couple of things. First, I need to copy that, and I need to go back to the S3 bucket on my redirects, and I need to update this to actually be my own domain. You can probably do something smarter about this either in CloudFront or in Route 53 if you use it. I don't want to stand too much on the redirection though. I want to stand more on the experience of actually deploying this. And with that out of the way, if I press enter, as you can see now, my website is hosted with my own SSL certificate under my own domain, and it is working. I am hosting my website in an S3 bucket for very, very cheap. This can be $1 or $2 a month, actually, depending on your traffic, of course, but it's very, very cheap to start, and we're not paying for anything. And if I click on that page again, it automatically takes me there. So as you can see, with an S3 bucket, CloudFront account, and a certificate that we made for free, we are hosting our WebAssembly website, Blazor website, in a very cheap way. That's all I had for you for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Special thanks to my Patreons for making these videos possible. If you want to support me as well, you're going to find the link in the description down below. Leave a like if you like this video, subscribe for more content like this, ring the bell as well, and I'll see you in the next video. Keep coding.